So I really want to ask you to think about when you say we'll train them, we can take care of that. Really, if they don't have the reading, writing, and math skills, is that really true that you can do that level of training and that we just need to handle the soft skills? So I urge you to continue to think about what pieces of the skills you take for granted, because what it ends up, the impact it has on people who are working with residents who don't have those skills, the reading, writing, and math, is that it leads to, well, why not short-term training programs, like we're sort of trying to move away from, that just teach people job readiness, it'll take 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and then find them employment. Well, we say because really what they need are the skills, the academic skills, in addition to those skills, so that they can take advantage of post-secondary training and education. So I feel like in that message that we hear over and over, I find myself saying, yeah, until they get the person who can't read and write and do math. So I just urge you in your constituency to make sure you don't leave that piece out of the survey and that that's taken for granted, because it leaves us with these expectations that we can take 6 and 8 weeks and teach somebody how to practice showing up on time and interviewing well. That's my request to you. And then my question is, where would we find the survey that you've been referring to?
Yeah, so let me just react to your comments. I think it was a good one. I was struck when the Attorney General was talking about third grade reading and, the predictor of third grade reading. That comes up quite a bit in my early childhood work, right? So if third grade reading is that important, how do you get children to read by third grade? And you start working your way backwards, and you end up at early childhood literacy, right? And that's really where it begins. So if you start there with high quality early childhood and you work your way up and all of a sudden these folks are reading in third grade, they'd be less inclined to be the population you're talking about, right? So that is part of certainly part of our work. I know that the AIM has been very engaged in that as well. So point well taken. In terms of the survey, I think it's on our website. I also can email it to you. But there's like a 3 or 4 page summary that I'm happy to share.
Yeah, I'll just respond to your comment as well, which I think was very well articulated. Sometimes I think we take for granted, and we're proud of the fact that our kids do perform very well on standardized tests, and sometimes often rated first in the nation, but they're not all there, and we still have failing schools, and we still have students that don't graduate with reading, writing, math skills, as you said, and we've got to figure out what to do to help them as well. We're a state with not a lot of population growth, with an older population that's going to be retiring. We need to make sure all of our students have the skills necessary to be successful, not only to do the right thing by them, but to make sure that we have that workforce in place for the next generation. So that we've got to figure that out too. So I take that point very seriously.
Yeah, one of those older workers. It's retired. My name is Don Gillis from the Mass Workforce Board Association. I first wanted to thank 3 of you, and also all the employees that were here today, for all the contributions you make being engaged in the system. Because I think, as Nancy Stager said earlier, that it is the running businesses, and this is something you have a self-interest in getting workers. And all the businesses have a self-interest in getting qualified and trained workers, and those on the supply side have an interest in those workers going to work in your companies. And so your leadership is very important on the policy side as well as day-to-day. You mentioned the Workforce Training Fund, which I guess is now about 17 years old, and you've been involved in that, Rick, for some time. It's a very important fund. It's filled a really dying need in the Commonwealth from manufacturers and everyone else, and it's an important resource. And I congratulate you and everyone else for the longevity of this fund. It went from $18 to $21 million. I remember 10 years ago standing with you with the State House and the Speaker announcing an economic jobs bill. And that was right at the time that the Workforce Solutions Group was created. And there was a bill called the Workforce Solutions Act. And it included, as part of it, something called the Workforce Competitiveness Trust Fund. And it was funded for $18 million in that very first year. And over the course of this 10 years, it's had very sporadic funding. And the Workforce Competitive Trust Fund, for those of you who don't know, is a fund that brings together employers in key industry sectors, community colleges, educators, both tech schools, job training folks, community centers, and ABE providers, and a whole range of people to provide services to those businesses and grow them. we've had sporadic funding, and I wondered, a lot of people suggest that we should need a permanent funding stream. Should it be an increase in the exaction on the unemployment insurance? Should it be from the general fund? So I wonder if you could comment on your thoughts about how we do this, and I appreciate the support both your organizations have provided and the $2 million funding that I received this year.
Don, thank you for that difficult question. As you know, the Workforce Training Fund is funded by a surcharge on the unemployment taxes that employers pay. And the surcharge raises about $21 million. Although we were supportive of this concept 17 years ago of having a Workforce Training Fund, having another tax on top of our really high unemployment insurance taxes, we didn't see that as an ideal solution. Because again, the cost of doing business is one of the challenges here, and our UI costs, like healthcare and energy, are definitely on the high side. On the other hand, we've worked really hard to make this Workforce Training Fund work as well as we could. Nancy Steger's on the board with me as well, and it's a really good board. The staff has been great, and I think we've done a really good job of making that an employer-friendly program that's done really good things. I hear your point about I'm also supportive of the Workforce Competitive Trust Fund and the great work that it's done in terms of identifying certain key industries and how do we develop the pipeline of workers. I'd be hesitant to endorse another surcharge on employers. As I said, I think we have to be mindful of the fact that you can't just be adding another tax onto a really high, unemployment tax already. That being said, again, we should brainstorm about what would be an appropriate level of funding, because I hear you that it's been sporadically funded over the years, and we tend to lose funding when the economy's bad and the budget's tight and they're looking to cut things. So we cut it at a time when we probably need it the most. So not ready to endorse any particular funding stream at this time, but certainly willing to think about it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Very good.
Just a couple of final remarks.
Literally, I couldn't have.
Final remarks, and we'll do a wrap-up. But first, let me thank Rick and Jake for your insightful remarks and your participation here today. Thank you very much. Well, I know that we all have a great deal to digest based upon today's great program. And we have a governor clearly that's committed to strengthening the workforce, and three very talented secretaries that we heard from earlier. Legislative leadership who was represented here by the Senate President, who clearly understands the challenges and opportunities that we face as a state. We had creative educators here today from all levels, from VOTEC community to higher education and other community partners. And clearly, WIOA represents an opportunity for us all. And with that, we also have three very interactive breakout sessions. I happened to sit through one this afternoon, and I'd like to take just a few minutes to hear from the speakers in those sessions with the takeaways from each. First would be the automotive. I'm dating myself, and also sharing with you my dyslexic past. Automative, please help me, automation, I'm sorry, and the impact of technology on work and the workplace. It only takes one word to follow up a great speaker, you know what I mean?
I'm only going to take a moment. First of all, I have to say I didn't go to the other two, but this was really a fantastic panel. You can see the people who were in it. Rainier Moquette was the moderator, and we had Ken Tomasetti from Act Fastening Solutions. They are a manufacturing company in central Massachusetts. The unique thing here is he has over 100 employees, And he has continually automated, adopted new technology, and he has sent his workers, every single one, for new training. So he doesn't call them his workers, this is his family. And it's an exemplary system. So he was just saying it can work, and it can work to everybody's benefit. Even if you have automation and technology, it doesn't mean that you have to reduce staff. Then we had Phil Jordan from Economic Advancement Institute. He talked about the changing nature and how automation is going to result in change of jobs, not necessarily fewer jobs, because the new technology will spur new jobs. But basically, I think his conclusion was we have to be adaptable, we have to work with our partners, we have to, in this situation where the new normal is that jobs will be lost, we all have to be ready and prepared to retool. And then Oprah Sharon from MIT spoke, and he had a very interesting take on this situation. He said, wouldn't it be wonderful, he actually made a recommendation, and his recommendation was, wouldn't it be wonderful if those people who were now unemployed had an environment where they could get together, have a guaranteed universal salary so that they could pursue whatever their passion is, work in collaborative groups, and actually create new jobs. So everybody thought that that was very cutting edge. They did ask, is anybody talking about this? He said, well, some people are writing about it, although it was not in the Democratic nor the Republican debates. So it was very cutting edge, but I think the bottom line is everyone agreed that Mr. Tomasetti and him using automation and technology to improve his productivity, yet keeping all of his employees, was unique, and that the real new normal will be that there'll be a consistent change in people's lives. There will be loss of jobs and creation of new jobs, and we have to be ready to retool.